Begin?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tadho Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Hridyantastohya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nastya Prayeshwa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavada Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkrupatvamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. So today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 17. Swadishnyam pratapan prano bahischa pratapatyasau evam virajam pratapams tapatyandar bahipuman swadishnyam pratapan prano bahischa pratapatyasau evam virajam pratapams tapantyantar bahipuman Swadishnyam pratapan prano bahischa pratapatyasau evam virajam pratapams tapatyandar bahipuman. Swadishnyam, radiation. Pratapan, by expansion. Prana, living energy. Bahi, external. Cha, also. Pratapati, illuminated. Asau, the sun. Evam, in the same way. Virajam, the universal form. Pratapan, by expansion of. Tapati, enlivens. Anta, internally. Bahi, externally. Puman, the Supreme Personality. Translation. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The universal form of the Lord, or the impersonal feature of the Lord known as the Brahmajyoti, is clearly explained here and compared to the radiation of the sun. The sunshine may expand all over the universe, but the source of the sunshine, namely the sun planet, or the deity known as Surya Narayana, is the basis of such radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the basis of the impersonal radiation or the impersonal feature of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.27. It is the Brahmanohi Pratishtaham verse. So the universal form of the Lord is the secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord. So the universal form of the Lord is the secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord. But the primary form of the Lord is Shyamasundara with two hands playing on his eternal flute. 75% of the expansive radiation of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual sky, Tripad Vibhuti, and 25% of his personal radiation, it just moved, and 25% of his personal radiation comprehends the entire expansion of the material universes. That is, so this is also explained as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.42. Thus, the 75% expansion of his radiation is called his internal energy, whereas the 25% expansion called the external energy of the Lord. The living entities who are residents of the spiritual as well as the material expansions are his marginal energy, Tatastha Shakti, and they are at liberty to live in either of the energies, external or internal. Those who live within the spiritual expansion of the Lord are called liberated souls, whereas the residents of the external expansion are called the conditioned souls. We can just make an estimate of the number of residents of the internal expansions in comparison with the number of residents of the external energy, and may easily conclude that the liberated souls are far more numerous than the conditioned souls. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's an amazing verse, and this is coming at the end of this section in this chapter. Lord Brahma, as he's answering Narada Muni, and so this particular section, the 17th verse, is the last one here. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments about this particular verse. He speaks about the life energy, the force that gives us energy, this life energy, which is floating within our body. It energizes not only our body, but it also radiates that energy externally. So the Lord who is situated as Antaryami, he is within the universal form. And interestingly, Prabhupada specifically speaks something about that universal form. He calls it as a secondary imagination of the impersonal feature. Very interesting. So the Lord who is situated as Antaryami is energizing in the sense that he is empowering everything by three different types of his energies: his Jnana Shakti, and his Kriya Shakti, and his Dravya Shakti. So that Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti, it happens when Ahankara, the false ego, mixes with mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, like that, by the influence of these energies, the Lord is influencing the inside as well as the outside. So Prabhupada is pointing towards two different, specifically Prabhupada is speaking two special points here in this purport. One is speaking about the universal form. The universal form is described not only as an impersonal feature of the Lord, but it is a secondary imagination of the impersonal feature. So what does that mean? There are different levels of understanding God, and we know that the main three aspects with which the Lord is known as the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But in the impersonal feature, when Arjuna asks this question to Krishna, please show me that how you have entered into each and every atom of creation. And Krishna shows him that universal form. So the Lord is present as his energy within every atom of creation. But the impersonal feature is that next level or a secondary imagination of that impersonal aspect of the Lord. So now I will come back and touch upon the references in Srimad Bhagavatam, in what context this universal form is discussed. In fact, quite a bit of discussion is there within Srimad Bhagavatam on that topic. But Krishna also says, I am the basis of that impersonal energy. Brahmano hi pratishtaha. He says that in Bhagavad Gita. So, and Prabhupada emphasizes the source of all this is that Shyama Sundara, who is playing flute in a two-handed form of Krishna. So now, within the next session of this purport, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about the Ekapada Vibhudi and the Tripada Vibhudi. In fact, the verses starting from now, 18 through 22, is focusing on the Ekapada and Tripada Vibhudis. However, here, Prabhupada is touching upon these. So, there are special qualities attributed to the Ekapada and Tripada Vibhudis of the Lord. So what is this Ekapada, which is 25% of Lord's creation? That is this material world and material realm and the material energy of the Lord. So within this material realm, we cannot experience the Sat Chit Ananda feature of the Lord. We know that the Lord has a form which is made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. One cannot experience these aspects within this material world at all, because we are conditioned souls, very barely experienced. And it is, especially in our conditioned state, it is very, very, very rare to understand or experience this Satchit Ananda aspect of the Lord. Now, one of the reasons, this is really very interesting, one of the reasons very clearly stated is within the Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the upcoming verses, it will clearly say that one who is strictly following celibacy, strictly following celibacy, that person is eligible to make further advances. So anyone who has an inner spiritual journey or inner spiritual path, this is very, very significant. Now, this whole question about celibacy, the word that is being used in one of the Bhagavatam verses is Abrahat Vratas. Abrahat Vratas means one who do not strictly follow the vow of celibacy. So this Ekapada Vibhudi, this 25% creation of the Lord, where we are situated, the living entities are called Grihamedhis because we come under this influence of being subject to this problem of attachment to sense gratification, particularly sex life. And so it's not, sex life is not just some sort of a sense enjoyment. When one becomes excessively obsessed with this, then what happens is this intense desire to enjoy, that intense desire to enjoy for one's own self, that becomes further manifest, and ultimately what happens is puts this energy, it puts one in the bodily concept of life more and more. So it will intensify our suffering, and it will intensify to such an extent that our whole purpose of trying to understand our spiritual position, the journey, that inner journey, it gets impaired. That is the problem in this Ekapada Vibhuti section of Lord's creation. Now, the Tripada Vibhuti, which is the spiritual realm, where 3 times more living entities are there, it's so beautifully also explained the characteristics of that realm. There are 3 special qualities. One is called Amritam, Kshemam, and Abhayam. These 3 qualities exist in the spiritual realm. Amritam, Kshemam, and Abhayam. Amritam means there is no death. And Kshemam means all happiness. And Abhayam is fearlessness. So that is the place where the liberated souls can experience this Sat Chit Ananda feature of the Lord. Now the Lord is so merciful. Lord shares everything with the living entities. He allows, it is said that the residents of Vaikunta planet have a form which looks exactly the same as that of Lord Narayan. He doesn't hold back anything. So whatever he experiences, that Sat Chit Ananda, to a certain extent, the liberated soul also is able to experience. And so the Sandini, Samvit, and Hladini potencies of the Lord, it is experienced to some extent by the living entities. And so these 3 qualities, Amritam, Kshemam, and Abhayam, this is existing in the Tripada Vibhuti. So the living entities in that area, they are called as Aprajanam. Aprajanam means for those who are not meant for rebirth. Now, it's very, very interesting to understand the Supreme Lord. He is the shelter of both these paths. The path that is being followed in the Ekapada Vibhuti and the Tripada Vibhuti, the Lord is, He is the shelter. Very, very interesting. Then how is it that the Lord is present in each and every atom of creation within this material nature? Just as He is also present in the spiritual realm, how is it, in which way He is, if at all, in which way He is interacting differently with these 2 realms? And it is really very fascinating subject, because it is said, as Bhagavad Gita speaks, the Lord has already explained to Arjuna that He is present in each and every atom of creation. So that means, and we all know that He is present within our heart as super soul. He is very close to us, and it is said that the Lord is very close as well as He is very far away. So the explanation for this is, the Lord does not intimately, closely associate in this material realm. It is like this Ekapada Vibhuti, He treats like a mistress. Whereas His interaction with His internal energy is fully manifest only in that spiritual realm. So here He is distant. Even though He is close to us, He does not mix. Because who would He mix with? He will mix only with His internal energy, which is in the spiritual realm. And the Lord is present in every atom, just like how the sun's rays are present, energizing everything within the creation. He is present. Another example Srila Prabhupada gives is just like the king is present in all the departments. How is he present? Because of his empowerment, all the departments are happening. But personally, he is not present. Krishna is empowering everything within this Ekapada Vibhuti. He is the master of both the realms, but he is a step away, even as he is guiding the living entities, even as he is watching the movement of each and every living entity. He is not implicating, or he is not too much involved here. So this difficulty of those who are in this Ekapad Vibhuti, because of this entanglement in sex life, this is very clearly indicated in these descriptions regarding the Ekapada and Tripada Vibhutis, that ultimately this intense sex desires can lead to transformation of our body and mind. So as long as we are so much engrossed in this, it's really very hard to get over this. So, so the context in which all of this is being said is when Narada is questioning Brahma. So in the previous chapter, Narada asked 6 questions. Yad Rupam, what are the symptoms of the universe? Yad Abhishtanam, what is the shelter? Yad Srishtam, how the creation is taking place. Yad Samastham, how it is conserved, and where does it merge at the time of universal dissolution. Yad Patram, what it is depending upon. And the last question was Yad Cha, what it is composed of. That means what are its ingredients. So this is being focused more on this chapter, Yat Cha. So it is answered in detail from verses 1 through 17, and also again 23 to 30th. So Narada was at that point, he was fully convinced about Brahma's position. He was sure, I know that my father Brahma, he is in charge of this whole creation. Narada was completely convinced about that. Until Brahma spoke, and I think the previous verse I spoke last month was relating to that, because Brahma explained he is subordinate to the Lord. Only those people who are under the influence of the material energy would mistakenly think that Brahma is the supreme. Only one who is bewildered by Maya will think like that. That was Brahma's answer to Narada. Now, so the creation of the universe was already explained in the previous verses. And so in the present verse, the word used is antaryami, how the Lord energizes the creation with his jnana, kriya, and dravya shakti. So this has been, I heard yesterday, Vamshidhari Prabhu went through the details of the creation of these, how these elements are created. But I will just point in a little bit in a little different direction within that in I will emphasize more on the influence of the modes, how that transforms things. So the pradhana, which is the original energy of the Lord, there is no, the 3 modes are inactive within pradhan. So from pradhan comes this mahattattva. Mahattattva is a very interesting substance. I heard a class by His Grace Ravindra Swarupa Prabhu so many years ago. I heard that class so many times because at that time no diagrams, nothing was available. And so I heard it again and again and again. I don't think I heard a class as clear as the one that Ravindra Swarupa Prabhu gave. And he explained Mahatattva as the sum total of cosmic intelligence, sum total of cosmic intelligence. And he called, based upon, of course, the words that are used in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is Hiranmaya, it is golden in nature. So much can be said about it. So within Pradhan, the modes are inactive. And then comes Mahatattva. Mahatattva is in Sattva, and in combination with the Rajas, it becomes this Sutra Tattva. But then when it becomes Ahankara, false ego, the predominant mode is Tamas. And from Ahankara, in combination with goodness, the Jnana Shakti is produced. Ahankara in combination with passion, Kriya Shakti, and Ahankara in combination with ignorance, Dravya Shakti. So from Jnana Shakti, the sense devatas are produced, and Kriya Shakti senses, and the Dravya Shakti produces these gross material elements. And Ravindra Swarupa Prabhu had a little, very easily understandable explanation. If we get to time, I will get to that. So in this verse 17, the Lord is described as the material cause and the efficient cause. And in verse 16, the previous one, it was already explained that the Lord's limbs, it provides all the ingredients necessary, that is the material cause is coming from the Lord's limbs. So now, since Prabhupada touched upon the universal form, let us speak, let us discuss a little bit about the universal form. So universal form is an interesting subject. If it is as we talked in the very beginning, it's a secondary imagination of the impersonal feature of the Lord. Why it is being discussed in so many different places, particularly in 3 sections. The first place where it is being discussed is second canto, chapter 1. Verses between 26 and 37. So there, the universal form is discussed as the object of meditation by yogis. And what type of yogis? It is said Dharanashraya yogis. They have this object of meditation, which is the universal form. So Srila Prabhupada comments on this, and Srila Prabhupada says that a person whose heart is not clean will focus on this universal form, or this feature of the Lord. In other words, one whose heart is clean would easily focus on the Shyamasundara feature of the Lord, whereas the Dharanashraya yogi, whose heart is not yet clean, focuses on the impersonal feature, but this particular form, which is the universal form. Then there is a second time, the same description of universal form comes in second chapter. This is this section we are dealing with, the verses 1 through 16. So Lord Brahma is answering Narada's questions. So, as stated in this particular verse, Lord is described as the material cause and the efficient cause. So, in this context, Lord as the material cause and efficient cause. This is where the universal form is discussed. So the limbs of the Lord is providing all the ingredients necessary for creation, and how each element is created from a specific part of the universal form of the Lord. So that brings us to another interesting point, that one of our famous thinkers and philosophers called Aristotle, everybody must have heard, he also had this topic about 4 causes And I'll just touch upon that at the end of this, and then we can somehow try to understand how that is quite different from what is being discussed here in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the third section, where the universal form is discussed further, is again in second chapter, second canto, 10th chapter, verses 10 through 35. So there it is said, the Supreme Lord desires, the Lord is desiring all type of sense perception, and sense organs are made because the Lord develops the sense organs because he has a desire to enjoy. He wants to see, and therefore he has an eye. He wants to smell, therefore he has a nose. And so the different parts of this Virat Rupa, it manifested when the Lord is desiring to perform a certain activity. In fact, that whole desire of the Lord, which produces the sense organs, that similar process is what is happening within the womb of the living entities, whether it is human or whether it is any other species of life. Various sense organs are produced according to the nature of the body one has received and one's desire to enjoy. Those type of sense organs are developed within the womb of the mother. So, because the Lord desired these things happened, so the living entities also receive material bodies according to what their desires and what is sanctioned by the Lord. So just for the sake of understanding Aristotle's four causes, theory of causes. Aristotle talks about four causes, and one of them is, number one is called material cause, two is called formal cause, and the third one is efficient cause, and the fourth one is called the final cause. So the examples that are given to understand Aristotle's theory, the material cause, for example, are something like, materials like copper or iron or like wood, brick, nails. So these are materials which are used for creating something. So formal cause is something you need to have some kind of a formal idea which has to be put in place before you can create anything, or you can call like that of a blueprint. So an engineer has to have a blueprint of some sort to create a statue, for example, a Statue of Liberty. And then after the sketch is made, using these ingredients, that object is made. And then comes the efficient cause. Efficient cause is the builder who uses all these materials and creates that object, which we can, example given so many times is that of a Statue of Liberty. And then the last one is the final cause, which is, its purpose. What is the purpose of that created object? So in the case of the Statue of Liberty, it is an emblem. It stands for the symbol of freedom. So now if we compare that to what is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, I mean, here Aristotle is starting to think about this use of ingredients that are already existing in creation. But look at what we are hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is giving us a deeper insight into, before even the ingredients are present, before even that, the Supreme Lord is the substratum on which he's the source from which everything is coming from. So it's not like we take something that is already there. The Lord is the source of every single thing, including that which is material and that which is spiritual. including his Ekapada Vibhuti and his Tripad Vibhuti. So this brings, I thought I will conclude with one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which very nicely explains how what is this extraordinary quality of the Supreme Lord, and how he is really, after creating these two realms, everything is coming from him. He has a he's definitely, he is conscious of everything that is happening, both in the material and in the spiritual realm. And yet his own interaction with both these vibhudis, it is different. So in the first canto, chapter 3, first verse, this verse we have already studied previously. I will read it. Jagrihe purusham rupam bhagavan mahad adibhi sambhodam sodashakalam adau loka sisrikshaya. Jagrihe purusham rupam bhagavan mahad adibhi sambhodam sodashakalam adau loka sisrikshaya. First of all, the Supreme Lord, with a desire for creating the worlds, manifested the form of the eternal first Purusha, full like the moon, who was united with Mahat Tattva and other elements. Imagine that. The Supreme Lord, with a desire for creating the worlds, manifested the form of the eternal Purusha. What is that eternal Purusha? It is the first Vishnu, who is lying in the causal ocean. He is full like the moon, who was united with the Mahat Tattva and other elements. Everything is there within the body of the Lord. So Jagrahe means the Lord manifested that Purusha, the form, before creating Mahat Tattva and before manifesting the Jivas. Why? Why did he do that? He did this in order to manifest the places for the total and the individual Jivas. The word used in this verse is Samasti and Vyasti. Samasti and Vyasti, for the entire group of Jivas and individual Jivas. Loka Sisrikshaya. So they have been merged within him, and then he creates all this. Then, so this form, which is described in this first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, is the first of these three Purushas. So Brahma Samhita also describes this. This is the Lord who is lying in the Karana ocean, which reminds me of a very interesting description of how the demigods, along with Lord Brahma, under the guidance of Vishnu, decides to visit Lord Krishna in Goloka. And so with the guidance with Brahma, from Brahma, they went outside of our universe. And our universe is a very special place where there is a hole in the roof of this universe, because Lord Trivikrama's toe pierced a hole in the top of our universe. So that's unique to this universe. And so when they went out through that hole in their vehicle, whatever carrier they were using, and they were going through the causal ocean, and as they were moving away outside, after reaching the outside of the universe, they could see unlimited number of universes floating within the causal ocean, just like Udumbara fruits. It is said they are like bubbling, blobbing, like globes. They are going up and down within the causal ocean. So when they were looking back, they entered into this causal ocean, and they were looking back as their vehicle was going forward, and they could see unlimited number of universes going up and down. That was really an amazing sight for them. So this Karanodaka Sai Vishnu, who is he's responsible for the creation. So he manifested Jagrahe, that form for creation and destruction of the universe. So in order to respect his power in other situations, so he is described in full. He is known as Sodashakalam. He has all Shaktis, all energies, and Sodashakalam also means he is perfect. He is perfect. He has all the elements within him. So although he is the ocean of Swarupa Shakti, imagine he is described as an ocean of Swarupa Shakti. He's not an ordinary person. He's an ocean of Swarupa Shakti. He's the creator and destroyer of the universe by the actions of Maya. How, this is the last thing I have to say, how he is the creator and destroyer of the universe by the actions of Maya, it is through proximity rather than contact. This is very special. By proximity, he is very close, but he is not in touch. By proximity and not by contact. That kind of summarizes, by proximity and not by contact, that summarizes his interaction, the nature of his interaction with the Ekapada and Tripada Vibhudis. This is how, even though the Lord is the person who is the master of both the paths, how he is distinctly different in his interactions with these two realms of his own creation. He energizes everything internally and externally, and his interaction is distinctly different. And it takes a lot to understand, and also to understand those of us who are in this material realm. Srimad Bhagavatam's clear-cut identification of our problem, how we are bound by the sex energy. So that's not something, that can be overcome by just some sort of artificial restrictions and things like that. It is something one can overcome only by very conscious practice. Very, very conscious practice. So anyway, I think I will stop here. If anybody has any comments, happy to hear.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah.
Chintamani. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. That was amazing, Mataji, the explanation of how the Ekapad Vibhuti and why there is that difference in treatment, so to say, or experience that we have versus the living entities in Tripad, because the Lord is energizing by proximity, not by touch. That's so amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. And yet he's, even by proximity, it is said that the Lord understands everything. I have tried to, we have heard this, that because the Lord is situated within our heart as super soul, he can perceive the movements of our everything that that a living entity is thinking and doing, the Lord can perceive. Like I heard this explanation that just like the rose, if you stand near a rose bush, you can smell the fragrance of the bush. The roses. So similarly, the Lord can understand the heart of the living entity because he is so close. And then, you would think that he will be mixed in this, because for us, it is like, if we are close with something, we are, somehow we are engrossed in this. We don't know how to detach ourselves. We know only to plunge deep into every situation in our life. And yet Lord is a caring Father, right? I mean, he cares for the living entity. We are also caring for other living entities. The Lord is caring for each and every living entity. He is compassionate. He understands everyone. He reciprocates accordingly. And yet, that is the most amazing thing, He's proximate, and yet and this is when we hear like he's close and yet he's nearby and yet he's far. What does that really mean?
Yes, Mathaji. This is wonderful. I mean, this explanation.
He's not an uncaring Father either. He really cares. It's not like the Lord. Lord is the first one who wants us to go back, right? That's the beauty of it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And there was one more point which I wanted to make. It was like, I think Ravindra Sarupa Prabhu's beautiful explanation. I thought probably you will enjoy this. When this false ego in ignorance, that is which produces all these material. False ego in ignorance, he uses the word, it seizes the material elements. False ego in goodness, it seizes the demigods. False ego in mode of passion, it takes the senses. So the first element that is captured is the sound. And sound is in the sky. It's either, earth, water, fire, air, either. So either, the quality there is sound. So sound is the first one. First element, and then comes the air. Air has the quality of sound. It has the ability to carry sound and touch. You can feel the air in your body. And then comes fire, and fire has got the quality of sound. It can make sound. You can burn. If you touch it. And then it has a form also. When the fire burns, it has a form. And then water. Water has the quality of sound, touch, form, and flavor. Water has a flavor of its own. And earth has the quality of sound, touch, form, flavor, and also smell. So when the elements, the way Ravindra Sarupa Prabhu explains this is, each element takes its own unique distinguishing quality, and it naturally becomes indistinguishable from more subtle elements. Meaning, subtle element, the subtlest one is the sky, the ether, and it has the quality of sound. When that becomes air, air has the quality of sound and touch, and it does not resemble either at all. And when the fire comes and it has the sound, form, and quality, it does not resemble air. Imagine the complexity.
Yeah.
Imagine how is it like these different qualities are evolving out of more subtle to more gross. And when the gross forms are dissolved, it goes back into the subtle, and then it merges into the body of the Lord. So the Aristotelian theory of these causes is he being such a great thinker, I was thinking, he was talking about the material cause That's where he begins, the material cause, from where and then there is a blueprint, there is a person who creates it, and then there is the object created has a certain purpose. Of course, that is how everything is in creation, but that's not God's creation. God's creation is much more intricate, much more detailed, much more sophisticated. It is something to be appreciated. It is something beyond our ordinary imagination. Even the greatest thinkers of this world cannot even come anywhere near this understanding what Srimad Bhagavatam is giving to us. Thank you all for your patience. That's all what I have to say. Hare Krishna.